This is Orange Nation Overtime with Stephen Fonte and Paulie Sibilia.
Welcome into Orange Nation Overtime alongside Paulie Sibilia. I am Stephen Fonte, and it is going to be a late night tonight. 9 p.m. tip between Syracuse and Monmouth inside the Dome. Final tune-up game for the Orange before they head off to that really important trip out to Las Vegas, where they're going to see Houston and Kansas and one other opponent still to be determined. Got to take care of business tonight, and then we can all officially start talking about that Vegas trip.
Yeah, they'll get to it. And the most important thing tonight is J.J. Starling is back. He's healthy. Let's see how he performs in this lineup. We only saw him for like 3 minutes in his first game.
Yeah, Mike Waters, Orange Nation contributor, the first to report it last night that J.J. Starling would be back tonight. I think we were all kind of expecting this all along, reading between the lines. Adrian Autry said after the Binghamton game, it's not serious, but we're going to take our time, and we all know the schedule. We know Vegas is coming up. It would stand to reason that if he's close to coming back, that he would come back for this one, shake off whatever rust there might be, and then get ready for that Houston game and beyond. And the other thing Mike Waters reported last night, he was the first to report that Tyler Betsy is out with a foot injury, which, again, you can make do tonight. And that's one of the things that's one of the beautiful things about having a deep team is that one injury like that shouldn't really impact the team all that much.
Yeah, I saw Tyler Betsy after the game in Philadelphia, and he was clearly hobbled. He was visibly limping, so I don't know how long he will be out. But JJ, I think, is more important to have going into this tournament in Vegas, and hopefully this game is enough to knock the rust off.
Yeah, and everybody's wondering, too, what does this do to Kyan Anthony's minutes? And we've seen Kyan come in and make the most of those minutes. He's averaging about 18 points per game with JJ being out through these first three contests. I think you and I are on the same page about the minutes, that if he keeps playing well, Red will find ways to work him into the lineup. And that is the beautiful thing about being, we talk about depth, the versatility of these guys. JJ can play the one or the two. Kyan can play the two or the three. You can find ways to mix and match so that, maybe Nate George, J.J. Starling, and Kyan are all on the floor at the same time. So I think he's still going to get minutes. I think he's still going to score, but he's not going to be in the starting lineup most likely.
Yeah, and that led us to talk about what part of the lineup will he be in? Will he be in the crunch minutes, Steve? I don't think so. You thought so.
Yeah, I think right now, I think that if I'm Red, I would probably put him in the crunch time lineup because of the fact that offensively, you like to use this phrase a lot, he's cooking right now. And Nate Kings, who I think is a great shooter, and I think he's going to be just fine. Nate Kings has gotten off to a slow start. 1 for 5 from 3 the other game, the game in Philadelphia against Drexel. And through 3 games, Kyan has outperformed Nate Kings from an offensive perspective. I know Nate has done some other things, rebounding the basketball, playing good defense. All of that's important. But if tonight, and I don't expect it's going to be tonight against Monmouth, but let's say they were playing Houston tonight, and it's a close game, I would probably give the nod to Kyan in those crunch time minutes, given his ability to score right now. You disagree, given the fact that Kyan's a freshman.
Yeah, and I think Kyan was a little loose with the ball last game, too, and you want a guy who's been in those situations before against that level of competition, because it's a huge step up from Monmouth to Houston.
Yeah, and so that led us to have quite the heated debate. We talked about it on the Orange Nation radio show today for probably about 10 minutes. And then we had a surprise caller join the show to try and help us settle that debate. Take a listen. I think you want JJ on the floor, you want Nate George on the floor, you want Donnie on the floor, and you want your center on the floor.
Oh, Coach Beheim is on.
All right. Let's
Can I help you guys?
Please.
Yes, Coach.
Please.
Happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you, but I've been listening to you for 10 minutes about the same thing. Let me solve your problem.
Right.
When you get to the end of the game, you put the guys in that game that are playing well. You don't go to the starters necessarily. It might be, but if somebody's playing well at that point in time, then he stays in the game during that end of the game situation. Unless, as a coach, you feel, well, he's done everything he can do, he's not going to do it anymore. So you kind of go by the feel of the game, and, if your best player has been in foul trouble, like, say, Carmelo Anthony, and at the end of the game, somebody else is playing well in his position, you still put Carmelo Anthony back into the game. All right?
That makes sense.
But in this situation, Cayenne's played great. I'm really happy for him. I think that there's other guys, I think White's going to be valuable in some games. I think that Betsy could be valuable in some games, coming off the bench. And maybe one of them has a real hot hand in the end of the game, in a close game. Maybe one of them might be in there. You just have to play that by the game. You don't go at like today. If we're in a close game with Houston, we're going to put the seniors in. That's not the way you do it. You do it by the game, unless you have great differential in the players. Then you normally are going to put your best player. Your best players are going to be in at the end of the game. And for this year's team, we right now don't even know who the best players are yet. There's a lot of good players. I think they're playing well. Donnie's played well. I think, we've had good play from Nate. We've had good play from Cayenne. I think Nate King's, from watching him every day, he's the best shooter on the team, and he's solid defensive player. So I think you have to keep an open mind as to, we played 3 games. I remember 3 games one year, Jerry McNamara shot 5% for the 3 games. But we knew what he could do. So, we're not going to not play him because he played poorly in 3 games. I remember Buddy's freshman year, he shot 17% the first 10 non-conference games. And then he shot 40% in the league. So you have to play it by what you see in any particular game. And it could be anybody could be in there at the end of the game, depending on how the game is gone. Who's really played well, who's not. Maybe somebody's had fun. It's important to have depth. We talk about that all the time, and I think that's what Red has been able to do this year at this stage, to get some guys some time to learn what it's like to be in a game in college. And, I think obviously they have a lot of growth to do yet. It's a new team, a lot of new guys, and I think that takes time. And obviously you play Houston, Kansas. These teams are great teams, and there'll be great tests. But the end of game situations is generally who's really playing the best right now, who gives us the best chance to win. And on some teams it's your starters. On other teams it might be a hot guy. You just have to wait and see how. I remember one year we were at Providence and Preston Shumpert was playing terrible, and everybody else got us back in the game, and we got even with about 3 minutes to go. I think Preston was 1 for 10, but he was our best player. And I get him off the bench, and one of the players, who usually didn't say such a thing, kind of looked at me like, "What are you doing, coach?" And I put Preston in, and I looked at the player, and I said, "Don't worry about it, just play." And Preston went in and hit 2 shots right in a row. That was a 4-point lead.
Nice.
And it was a bit of a stretch because he was 1 for 10. And if it hadn't worked, I'm sure somebody out there, maybe not Paulie, but somebody would say, "Well, why did he put him back into the game when he was 1 for 10?" Why was Jerry McNamara in the Notre Dame game here when he was 1 for 10 and we threw him the ball and he made a 3 to win the game for us? Well, because we know he can do that. So you never know, but it could be anybody on this team right now could be in there. Certainly Cayenne's played great. Really happy for him. But, the level of competition will be different as we move forward.
Yeah, no doubt.
Shouldn't you be enjoying your birthday in retirement?
Yes, yesterday was my birthday.
I was going to say his birthday was yesterday.
Enjoyed it, and I've worked already twice. I've done 2 jobs today already, Paul. kind of like you, trying to do some different things. But I'm really excited to watch this team. I think they've got a lot of long ways to go. But last year they beat these teams by 10 points. A couple of these teams. I think last year's team would have gone down to Drexel and won by 4, or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe not win. So they're definitely better. That's what That's what we're looking for. College basketball is better. The league is better. We watched some of these teams around the country. So many guys came back. So many really great freshmen. Probably the best freshmen we've seen. The NBA people are saying it's the best freshman class they've seen in a long time. And 30 Europeans came over that are playing over here. So you've got a lot of really good basketball teams. This is going to be a heck of a year for college basketball in terms of just really, really good players. I mean, you can look around the country anywhere you look and see guys that are really good. In our league, NC State's better. Wake Forest almost beats Michigan. They had the game won. Missed free throws at Michigan. Michigan's a top 10 team. Florida State takes Florida to the end of the game at Florida. And Florida State's picked 12th in our league or something like that. Virginia Tech goes up and beats Providence up in New England. Obviously, Duke, Carolina are good. Louisville beats Kentucky. The ACC didn't do any of that last year, except for Duke. So it's a whole different league. College basketball is really good. I mean, really good. I mean, every time you look around, you see another team that's a really good basketball team. So it'll make for an exciting year, and it'll make for a great tournament at the end of the year. But as far as the end of the game, let's just go with the guys that are playing well that night. All right,
Coach,
who's had an impact?
I do have one question for you. What do you make of the defense so far from this team? It's man to man, so I don't know if you know much about it, but
I actually, Paulie, before you were born, we played man to man here. But that's all right. So I'm old, but I still remember that. I think their man-to-man is much improved. They have a little size problem at center against some of the bigger guys, but I love Kyle's. I think he plays hard. I think they've got a lot of young guys that always struggle on defense. They're doing a great job with them, but there'll be some defensive problems. I think for sure when you see some of the better teams. But I think they can mix it up. I think they can press a little bit. I know they've worked on their zone a little bit. I think their man-to-man is good. So I'm very excited about watching this team play and seeing how they develop. I think they have a real good chance to be a real good team. If you can't beat a top 10 team in the country at this point of the year, that's not a big problem. I mean, you want to, but you can still be a really good tournament team and lose to a top 10 team. That's not an issue. Are you going to be good enough to make the tournament? And we are, and there's a lot of teams out there that are. So it'll be fun to watch. Fun to watch this team play. They play hard. They play defense. I think, the key is that when they make shots, they can beat anybody.
Coach, we appreciate this. It's not every radio show that has a Hall of Fame coach calling and tell them who's right and who's wrong and how it should be handled in that situation. Thank you so much.
Coach, thanks for the call.
I'm happy to talk to Steve. Paulie, you actually, your knowledge has come a long ways. I mean, but when you start below the surface, but you've done well. You've done well. I'll give you credit.
Thank you.
He's coachable.
Good luck.
Yeah, he's coachable.
Good luck, guys.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate the call. So, again, that was Hall of Famer Jim Boeheim calling into the show, basically saying that neither one of us was right, neither one of us was wrong. It's the beauty of sports talk radio, but know your team. And as a coach, you got to have a feel for your team, and obviously Jim Boeheim did that so very well for so very long.
Yeah, it was great to hear those stories of, Preston Shumpert was struggling, went back to him. and his players were questioning it. So, yeah, it's gut. It sounds like it's gut feeling.
What does your gut tell you about tonight? Just to give you a point of reference, Syracuse 21.5-point favorites. Ken Palm has this as a 19-point Syracuse win.
That's a lot of spread. I don't know if they'll cover. I think they'll be in the 18 to 20 range.
I think that sounds about right. We said the same thing about Drexel. We thought that was going to be a relatively close game. It was for the first half, and then obviously Syracuse found another gear in that second half and ended up winning by 30. Jim Boeheim called the show. It was right about 12:30. It was like 12:29. We had another guest lined up for 12:30. That was Ty Hildebrandt from the Solid Verbal College Football Podcast. We ended up having to bump Ty later on in the show. We got him about a half hour later, and we did talk some football on the show today. And one of the things we talked about, Ty follows Penn State very closely, and we asked him about that Penn State opening and whether or not Fran Brown is being at least considered for that job there. Remember, his name popped up initially when James Franklin was fired by the Nittany Lions. So that's kind of where we led off with Ty today. Take a listen.
The field is obviously way more crowded now. And by that, I mean there are just a bunch of other openings that maybe Penn State didn't foresee when they decided to make this move. So that is obviously something that's going to complicate matters. There have been a bunch of coaches, some of which I think were on their radar. Rule being one of them, Mike Elko being another, Jeff Brom, I believe, has signed an extension or is close to signing an extension. There is a rather long list of other potentials for Penn State that have since re-upped at their current spot. So that has made things a little bit more complicated. And from what I have heard lately, they are just casting a wide net. Casting a wide net. For whatever that means to you, I think that means high-profile coordinators. I do think that means some sitting coaches. I have not heard Fran Brown's name lately, but my hunch is that given some familiarity that he's got with Pat Kraft and Pat Kraft has with him, I'm sure they've at least had some conversations about whether Fran Brown would fit what they decide they want to build in State College. So to be honest with you, I think it could go one of 1,000 different directions. I honestly have no idea which way they're going to go with this thing. My initial thought was that it was going to be Matt Rule. Everybody was putting Matt Rule as like candidate one for Penn State, but given the fact that he re-upped with Nebraska, and by the way, he's re-upped at other places before he decided to leave and go elsewhere. I'm not saying that's going to happen here, but this seems like it's probably got all the makings of a rather unpredictable coaching search. And if a name were to emerge that nobody had coming back in, the early part of October, it shouldn't be a great surprise.
I know you said you have no idea. I don't have any idea either, but do you want to take a stab at it? Like if you had to decide today or make a pick today, do you have a gut feeling or a little bit of an inkling?
Yeah, I mean, I think my gut instinct at this point would be somebody like Brian Hartline or Will Stein, one of the high-profile coordinators in the Big Ten, probably more Hartline than Stein, given the fact that he's a little bit more familiar with that area. Penn State has been at this point now for a couple years running where they just had a really hard time developing some of their offensive talent, right? They've done okay in the running back room, and they've done fine in terms of offensive line output, but they haven't had a solid receiving core in years. And I think we can look at what happened with Drew Aller as proof positive that they're still struggling to develop a quarterback. When was the last quarterback in State College that you looked at and you said, yeah, that guy's the real deal? It's been a minute. It really has. So I think that's probably where they're going to go. I think they're looking in terms of offense, somebody who they know can come in and excite the fan base by being a proven program builder or at least talent developer, let's say, on the offensive side of the ball. And I think Hartline would give them that.
I brought up the name Fran Brown. If you are Syracuse, and you know how this year's going, right? They get off to a 3-1 start. They lose Steve Angeli to that Achilles injury. They're now staring at, most likely 4-8 at best. I don't see them beating Notre Dame this weekend, and maybe they can beat BC. If you're Syracuse, would you consider extending Fran Brown, given what he's shown these 2 years? 10-win season, had him 3-1 with a quarterback leading the country in passing yards, and then things went south after that. Or is it tough to extend a coach when it's looking like maybe a 4-8 season?
It's tough to extend any coach right now, given the circumstances, because I don't think schools want to back themselves into a corner where there's like a large buyout that they would be on the hook for if things would go south. Now, I don't think that's the way things will go with Fran Brown. I don't believe that is his trajectory. I think it's far more likely that Fran Brown would go to another job than be outright fired at Syracuse. So maybe that risk is a little bit mitigated. What I think Fran Brown has done in his very short time at Syracuse is attract talent. He is getting talent in place. It was always going to be an uphill climb this year. The schedule was more difficult. There were a bunch of open questions. So I came on the air with you. We talked about some of those way back when. But I like what Fran Brown has done just in terms of attracting talent to the program. And I think that definitely has value. So if it's me, and if I can somehow ink an extension where we can keep him in town a little bit longer, maybe don't put ourselves on the hook for a large buyout or any kind of downside in that capacity, it's something I would absolutely consider because I like the guy. You know, I came on with you guys and I said months ago now, weeks ago, whatever it was, after the Franklin move, that I would like Fran Brown in State College. I like Fran Brown a lot. I think he is perfect for what the modern version of college football looks like. Somebody who can go out there, who can attract talent, who people want to play for, who is obviously very passionate. You would certainly like to see more wins this season, but I like the guy. So if it's me, I would say let's look at it and let's see what we can do.
One more Syracuse question for you, Ty. You look at next year, and Steve Angeli theoretically is going to be back healthy, and he will be the starter, Fran Brown said, when healthy. It's a more experienced team. You look at the schedule on paper anyway. At this point, it looks like a lighter schedule. What is the ceiling for Syracuse football next year? Could they be like a Georgia Tech or a Virginia from this year and be, in the mix for an ACC championship game appearance?
Well, so let's bear in mind that there are a bunch of balls up in the air right now in the ACC, particularly on the coaching side. Virginia Tech just solved theirs as we talked through, but I think there's potential. There could be some other openings, ones that we don't know about quite yet. There's just a lot that remains to be seen. So what I'm looking for, I think, first and foremost on the Syracuse side, I think they've already established that they can put an offense out on the field when they're healthy. What I'm curious to see about is on the defensive side of the ball. What does that look like after another cycle through the transfer portal with Fran Brown? Are they able to kind of get a little bit more going on the defensive side? That, to me, would be the biggest indicator. If we come out of this thing on the other end, again, like let's talk in March about the talent that he has brought in, what the defense looks like moving forward. And if we feel better about that side of the ball, given that the schedule is, as you said, a little bit lighter, I don't know if I'd go as high as ACC championship, but definitely back to a bowl game, definitely back in contention for just being one of those teams that's a pain. We know that this team plays whistle to whistle and that the best of a Fran Brown team is one that doesn't give up. But I'd like to see a little bit more on the defensive side of the ball to kind of bolster whatever I think they can build on the offense.
That's Ty Hildebrandt from the Solid Verbal College Football Podcast. Love his setup, by the way. Sounds so good and looks so good.
Wearing his own gear, too.
Yes. So we actually had this debate yesterday when the show was over. You and I spent another 10, 15 minutes debating about whether or not Fran Brown should get an extension now. I would be totally in favor of it. I think he is the real deal. I think he is the coach of the future here, and I think he can get Syracuse, where they want, where everybody around here wants Syracuse football to go. I think Fran Brown can lead them there. I don't care that it's a 4 or 3 win season or whatever it ends up being. And I think, so if the university wanted to do it now, I'd have no problem with that. I know that you don't necessarily look at it as, now would be the time to give him an extension.
Yeah, I don't think financially it fits for Syracuse right now. You've got Red, who's kind of on the hot seat, and if he doesn't make the tournament this year, do you need to buy him out? If he does make the tournament and they're really good, do you need to extend him? There's a lot of moving parts, and I don't think Syracuse is in a position where they can extend a coach, especially with this record.
The thing I would say to that is that you might be able to get Fran Brown at a better price now than if you wait one more year and they're really good again next year. Now all of a sudden that price tag goes way up. So I think it's a risk either way. I get that.
I think you got to risk it and hope that happens.
Yeah, well, right. Yeah, but you want to do everything you can to hang on to him. Okay, do you have another nugget for us today? This has kind of turned into a thing.
Yeah, my
Orange Nation
cartoon
Overtime.
facts. Did you know that the first product placement happened in a cartoon, Steve, for advertising? Do you know what cartoon it was? It's a
Bugs Bunny?
No, it's a cartoon character that eats a lot, Yogi the Bear. And he would eat Kellogg's cereal with the logo clearly visible on the screen.
Interesting.
So there you go.
I did not know that. By the way, for those who didn't Google it yesterday, you were right about, was it Jasper and the Jinx?
Yeah.
You said Jasper was Tom and the Jinx was Jerry, and you were right.
Thank you.
So
thank you, Steve.
Yes.
That needed to be shared with her. Thank you for my flowers.
Just in case people were wondering and they didn't
No.
check themselves, I just want to make sure that everybody's
so there
on
you
the
go.
same
The
page.
first product placement ever.
Hopefully you've learned something today. Hopefully you
Occurred.
learned something every day on this show. All right, we got to get to work. 9 o'clock tip tonight inside the Dome, Syracuse and Monmouth. For Paulie, I'm Steve. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.